I know I'm not the only one who's heard that you have to wait on God, wait for God's perfect timing. And this is usually in response to me saying I prayed for something and God didn't come through. The thing about it, though, that I don't think Christians address is that if you think God is outside of time, we as humans are not. And so there are some real time limitations for God to answer a prayer. For example, a lot of times Christians will maybe use the story of Joseph or the story of Job to say, see, they were faithful, they were patient, they waited, and eventually God came through with his perfect plan. But what about the story of the Israelites in Egypt? You know, when we tell that story, we focus on the fact that eventually God came through and rescued them. But we neglect to think about the fact that, according to the Bible, they were there for 400 years, which means that generations of humans lived and died in slavery. And they would have gone their entire lives thinking that God would come through for them, and he did not. And I think that's a reality that is hard to face, in that if God doesn't come through in a certain point, the timeline for God answering that prayer has passed. And this happens when people are sick, when people pass away, when there's certain things you're praying for help with. And I know it feels hopeful to say, well, I know God hasn't come through yet, but he's going to come through eventually. But then it leaves you with what to do when that timeline passes and he still hasn't answered.